What inspired you to create a documentary specifically focused on the experiences of Black women and girls?
I was approached by JT to make a film about Black women and girls. It's Black Girls ended up being the companion piece behind also Black Boys. So it's like Black Boys and then Black Girls. So for me, the thought pattern was always to have centering Black women in all facets and showing that we're not monolithic. I think people just sometimes think Black women are all the same. And so my thought pattern was just to show like, there are famous Black women, there are everyday Black women. We all are, we're just different.
As a Black woman, trauma is not our resting place. We do not have to stay down. We need to dismantle doing it all and calling it love.
I was told that I could be granted time, but they would not tie it to pregnancy. And to me, that just wasn't okay.
There are a lot of young girls that haven't developed the resilience yet. And I thought, oh, hell
no. This poem is about joy. It's not about water remnants, evaporation, or sand, or thirst, or dry fruit, or hinges, or being hung today. A Black woman could smoke a cigarette, could laugh. This poem is about joy, how we remember it in us, always.
I hope that, just that people get that we are an anthology and we are different facets of, people. We're not the same, and that is a good thing.
A little bit. So one, I know Jon-Thomas is a long name. I also go by JT for short. Parents got a little clever with the hyphen, situation. But as B was mentioning, this film was inspired by its companion, its first film entitled Black Boys, which centered the experiences of young Black men in America at the intersection of sports, mass incarceration, and education. And, that film took us about 3 years to create. It came out on Peacock in 2020. And, fast forward to now, I feel like the world has changed a lot. I think that during that time, specifically 2020, there was the murder of George Floyd. I feel like there was a big push towards advocacy. And also, I think that as we came out with this film around Black Boys, we felt like we couldn't finish this conversation around advocacy and around what the Black community needs without centering Black women and girls. And so B did a phenomenal job of really painting a picture of what that means to her and, really wanting to represent and serve our community in that way. So we're very proud.
So, okay, hold on. You said it took 3 years to get Black Boys in the can. How long did it take from start to finish to produce Black Girls and get it, the finished product before us coming up when it debuts?
Yeah, like 2.5 years. And
oh, wow.
Interviews. Yeah. Just that it's been a journey, I think people don't realize like documentary filmmaking, it really puts you through the ringer in a way where you have to really stitch together what stories, what themes you want to truly, show in a piece, and how do you expound upon them? How do you maybe not? So it's like a whole reworking. It's different than a narrative film where you just have a script, whereas a documentary, it's really you can have a template and an outline, but it's really, I think, found in the edit. So.
B, you have a wonderful analogy, I feel like, that you told me when we first met. I think it also kind of matches the concept of your walls. I think it was like a painter and an engineer or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. It's like, which one? I don't know. I feel like I always give you metaphors or whatever. But not just saying documentaries, because I've only done short documentaries, and yeah, I may go in with an idea of oh, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like an engineer. And then by the time it's done, it's a painter. And that's kind of the same embodiment of a documentary. And you kind of have to just yield and surrender to the process of, it being different than what you expect, but also holding on to, I think, the themes that you always had, which is what happened here too. So, yeah.
Now, of course, this documentary follows the stories. You have Allison Felix in it, the most decorated athlete in Olympic history. We have Vanessa Rochelle Lewis, an activist for body positivity. We also have Alex L., a New York Times best-selling author. So how did you go about selecting the individuals featured in this documentary? Was there any certain criteria you used to ensure, you had a broad and inclusive representation?
Yeah, I would say that we did pre-interviews, which were basically like we conducted discovery calls with each interviewee, and we would talk about kind of like what we were thinking about what their storyline could potentially be. And then that's where we would kind of like co-collaborate on like, ooh, I really want to expound upon, love or healing in my journey or whatever it might be, because everyone talks about different things. But I think if people want to do documentaries or just in general, I just find like with doing commercials, it's helpful just to have these calls just so, it feels like there's a collaborative spirit. And I think that it just helped, our producer, another producer, Imani Dixon was on those calls too, and JT would be as well. So it just would be great to have this like collaborative spirit and energy between the three of us and then the interviewees too.
In having those conversations and being able to meet those, just meet so many amazing people. I think that how we were able to work together and B and I collab on really figuring out what stories to tell and how is we actually ended up creating chapters that really encompass these stories. The chapters include body, beauty, health, mind, community, and love. And so I feel like we were thinking of what are all the multi-facets of Black women in the human experience. I think that those chapters really allowed us to really, I would say, take these stories and make sure they were as resonant as possible within, just covering that too.
In what ways do you hope this documentary will challenge common narratives or misconceptions about Black women and girls?
Yes, for that question. Okay, so I feel like Black women, we are just iconic and we create culture. We always are setting trends, like we're the girls. But I don't think that people don't realize our interior worlds and like they don't really get to glean in and see the things that we're struggling with or how our thoughts inhabit so much of who we show up as. And so I'm hoping that people will glean in a little bit more on our humanity and not be so quick to judge folks. You know what I mean? I think when people see Black women, they think different things, whether it's hypersexuality or adultification or colors and textures and all these things. And I think instead of just judging someone, I think the film hopefully allows people to see that we're not monolithic and we go through a lot, but we can also come out on the other side a different person, and we don't have to show up the way that our mother showed up or our aunties or sisters. So I think, we had a screening in LA and it was so beautiful to see so many women get so emotional because they felt like they saw whole Black women, whole just meaning like women that they wish that they could embody in ways. And so I never knew that would be one of the takeaways. So hopefully that's something that people take away.
And here, let me throw a question out to your wonderful producer here, JT. Could you, kind of talk a little bit about, or elaborate a little upon the process of bringing Black girls this experience, right? This documentary to Comcast for Black Experience on Xfinity.
Oh yeah, of course. So we had partnered with the Comcast community previously with Black boys, and so I feel like coming back just felt very genuine, and there was so much love. I mean, one of the first conversations that I remember that we had after being able to provide, the film, so I'm able to track how much they watched the film. So they watched it 17 times in one day, which was unheard of for me and, really surprising. But in addition to that, one of the first conversations we had after they previewed it was just, I think we had about maybe 15 to 17 people on the call, and one by one just went through and talked about their favorite scenes, favorite experiences, things that they didn't know, and ways in which they really felt like they were being called towards advocacy themselves. And they felt like that was already, really preempting not only just the goal of the film, but just the ethos of what a true partner would be. And from there, there's been just so much tremendous support. I feel like, oftentimes within the context of, being a Black creator, we wear a lot of hats. And so just being able to work with someone who understands that, work with an entity that understands that, and then also, gives us the support to be able to kind of program effectively in a resonant manner, for sure.
So what are you each most excited about viewers, especially Black women and young girls, experiencing when they watch this documentary?
Wow, it's hard to say just one thing, but I guess for me that they can show up differently, right? Like they don't have to be what society says. They don't have to be what their mom says. Like they can define who they want to be. And so I think for me, I want Black women to be like, oh, I can take a little bit from her. I can take a little bit from her. And I feel like they can make, they can build whatever they want and be that representation and embodiment. So yeah, that would be one of mine.
I think, okay.
Go ahead, JT. Yes, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, I feel, B said something specifically a second ago about, in a lot of ways, a lot of the depictions that we see of Black women are usually depictions that are traumatic. Sadly, within the context of even the world of media, Black creators oftentimes don't necessarily have the ownership over their likeness in the ways that we need. And I think that's what was so beautiful, this being both a Black-owned production and then also being able to be told by, Black women who really wanted, this story to be as resonant as possible. And so I feel that, with that thought process, I would really love for people who experience this, and specifically Black women and girls, to know that they don't have to be defined by their trauma. Even when we were, considered 3/5 of a person, we still found ways to make ourselves whole. And so I think that, that wholeness that B was speaking of within the context of that screening, I think that we're looking for that to be something that's democratized across everyone who sees this in the nation and beyond. So.
Right on. So let me ask you this. How does your documentary address the complexities of race, gender, class, and other intersecting identities?
I feel like in some ways it's more subtle, in some ways it's more overt. So in certain, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought I turned this off. Golly day. Okay.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Oh, I thought you did.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, I'm like, I turned that thing off. That's why I went on mute. But anyways, you're not hearing it?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Well, then
it could be like the Soldier Boy ringtone for all we know.
Hey.
But no, I can feel that question first.
Okay, cool. Yes. Well, I figured this out.
I think that what B mentioned, when it comes to how we, I would say, approach the conversations of race, class, social status. One thing that we were very thoughtful of is, over the last 3 years, there's been so much conversation around what justice looks like just in the zeitgeist. And I think that we wanted to be very thoughtful about the ways in which we were creating a conversation around celebration. And once again, not just leaning into trauma. And so, one of my favorite quotes comes from Cornel West by way of MLK, and it's justice is what love looks like in public. And I think that many times people, when they think of justice, they think of retribution, or they think of, punishment, or they think of injustice rather than actually what it can be. And so what we really wanted to do is really depict this world where, these women who are striving towards advocacy and ultimately are creating for themselves, they're utilizing this concept of justice in a way that's really, I would say, expansive and positive and resonant in that way. And so that was something that we really wanted to carry through in each of the different stories that we were stewarding.
There's a statement made in the doc, which I saw, which when I heard it really hit right here. And that statement, I know I'm paraphrasing right now. It goes something along the lines of, someone says, Black women do everything. You know, we carry the world on our shoulders and call it love, right? And I'm like, oh my God, that is so true. We will break our backs for everyone but ourselves and think that it's love, right? So I'm so glad that someone pointed this out in the doc. And I hope, among other things, that viewers take away that Black women really hone in on that message and let that sit with their spirit, right? And kind of reanalyze how they approach life. But with that said, let me ask you this. What do you hope viewers will take away from watching Black Girls? And do you see, and how do you see this documentary contributing to ongoing conversations about representation, equity, and social justice?
Yeah, I feel like even with what you just said is something that I think we all have felt as Black women, right? Like that burden, carrying that load, feeling like we have to be the matriarchs of our family, sometimes being more of an adult as a young girl, you know what I mean? Or looking out for our siblings and cousins and these kinds of things. So I hope that Black women can play, right? I hope that Black women can learn how, especially if you're a little girl, that you can be that, you can embody that. You don't have to be an adult yet. You can, because you're going to be an adult for a long time and go through a lot of things. So just enjoy girlhood and womanhood. It can be messy, it can be complicated, but I think that you can charter it and you can have these rebirth and these transformative experiences. I feel like I'm going through one right now. And so it was weird to be, you know, going through a rebirth for the last few years and then also making this film with JT. So it's just like I'm learning a lot, and I think it's okay to learn, and it's okay to put down these hats and these things that we've been taught that may not historically work for us anymore, and that we can rest. You know, that's one of the biggest things that I want Black women to realize, that those burdens, those ick, the things that give you the ick, whatever they be, whether they're around beauty, colorism, texturism, I don't know, stepping in the gap for your community, that you can also ask for help. You can also go to therapy. You don't have to do the traditional things of just carrying all these things by yourself. You can create a bit of a tribe that looks out for you, you know, and like asking for help is not a bad thing. So I think those are, I hope I answered it, but those are the things that I'm like, I really, really, really want Black women to get, and Black people, you know, and even if you're not Black, I'm sure, I hope that people can get the universal messages and things that we have in the film.
From the male perspective, right, listening to these testimonies of Black women in this documentary, how, if in any way, did this experience impact you personally? Did it lead to any unexpected insights or change? Let me rephrase that. Did it lead to any unexpected insights or changes in your own perspectives? Pardon me.
It definitely did. You know, when I think of the process of, you know, one, we spoke to maybe over 20 plus, 25 plus Black women, hearing their stories. You know, I couldn't help but think about, in addition to, you know, us wanting to provide a context in where when Black women, Black girls see this, they can exhale, they can feel seen, they can feel supported. I think that for anyone who's not a Black woman, really providing a roadmap into, you know, how can we show up better? How can we show up more fuller? How can we be, you know, an advocate of their brilliance, right? And also being able to name the language that's an impediment to that, and how can we choose to kind of, you know, really stand in that gap consistently. And I think that was one aspect of that, just being able to understand around like how to embody that more and how to live that. The other element for me was, you know, Black women, you know, even what you were saying, Nye, around the conversations around support, you know, like Black women have for generations now, you know, been at the forefront of most progressive social movements, right? Oftentimes without acknowledgement. And I think that level of both kind of commitment to community is something that doesn't get uplifted enough. And so it also really was convicting for me as well, and had to kind of have me go internally and say, okay, what are the ways in which I can embody some of those traits and really learn from these stories in my own way, even as being someone who identifies as male, and those were just, I would say, the combination of both of those experiences ultimately is something that I feel like can be translated to anyone, of any race, any creed, any gender. So.